Hey guys, this is Will, and welcome to Latinx Talks. Hey guys, I want to welcome you to episode 13 of Latinx Talks. In this episode, I'm speaking with Larissa Davila. She's the founder and CEO of BCO Consulting Group here in Austin, Texas. This company aims to help businesses and organizations grow by providing a spectrum of consultant services around business development and growth. Larissa shares with us her story as to how she arrived in Austin from Laredo, Texas. She provides us insight on what her experience was like as a businesswoman, as well as provide some tidbits of information as to what things you should look for when starting a new business and how to protect your product, content, or services. As always, I would love for you to join our Instagram page for updated episodes, as well as share our podcast with friends and other business folks. You can always find us on social media at LatinXTalX. Enjoy the show.
I am originally from Laredo, Texas. I grew up in the Mexican side, in the Nuevo Laredo, Mexico side. And then when I was about 16, I moved back to Laredo. And my dad didn't want me to go to college.
Really?
Or he did want me to go to college, but he didn't want me to pay. He didn't want to pay for my college. So he said, if you go to the college, like the local community college here, I'll pay for it. But if you want to go to a bigger university, then I'm not going to spend my money, because you're a girl, you're going to get married, and your whole purpose in life is to have children.
Okay.
And raise your children.
Old school thought
very,
process.
very,
Yeah.
very old school, yeah.
Yeah.
And so at that time, I didn't have very good grades. I told them, well, if I pay for my education, will you let me go? And he was like, yeah, sure, you can go. Well, little did he know that I just didn't have a purpose for studying before. And when I had a purpose for getting an education, and it mattered for me just for the point of being independent. And I heard about independent women that could do whatever they wanted to. And it seems like the kind of life that I wanted. So that was, at that time, I was on the 7th grade. And from the 7th grade on, I was on the top 10 of my class. So
That's pretty cool.
It was a complete turnaround. I actually got accepted to Notre Dame, a full scholarship.
Wow.
back in high school, yeah. But my dad still didn't let me go because he didn't want that. He didn't see it right that a girl live by herself in another city, and then it seemed so far from for him that he didn't understand that if I went, I was gonna come back and back for it. For him, it was just like too much. So I ended up going to Texas A&M International, which is the one in Laredo.
Okay.
And I got my degree in business administration. And back then, I always wanted to do social work. And then it was it was always an argument with my mom, because my mom said, "Oh, te vas a morir de hambre if you want to do social work." And now I know that she was right. But so
they're underappreciated for what they do. Yes, definitely.
So I ended up winning that fight, and I started my college education going for social work. But then, so the way the university is set up is that you take classes so depending on the college that you are on, that's the college where you're going to be. And so my college was super boring. You would go into class, and then you would get out of class, and that was it. You go home. Well, in the building there was a big alley, probably like a mile between one building and the other one. And the other building, it was a party the whole time. There was always people listening to music and talking, and it was a big party. And I knew that I needed to be on that side of the, on that building.
Right.
So I asked around, and they told me that it was the business building. So I went and I just dropped so I lost like 2 semesters of classes because I wanted to be on the party building. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
No, when you're saying party, like literally party, or like it was just a lot more fun for you to.
It just seemed like people that were more fun.
Okay.
And for me, it was the kind of like that's what I wanted to do. The people that I knew and the people that I wanted to hang with were on the business building.
Okay.
So I asked the college counselor. I was like, what do I have to do to be here? And she was like, well, you could go accounting, marketing, business administration. And so those were the 3 options so to salvage the classes, the most classes that I could get those 3 careers. And I told her, just give me the one with the least numbers. And she was like, well, accounting, definitely no. And then marketing has statistics, so you have to go for business administration. And that's how I got my degree. Well, I ended up loving the classes. I love everything about business administration. And so I thought to myself, I said, well, I still want to go for social work. I'm just going to get this degree because it goes with the people and the ambience that I want. But I'm going to be in business administration and social work. Okay. So I ended up getting, I started, so I got a side job to pay for my college, and I worked at FedEx. And I ended up getting promoted and promoted and promoted, and then I needed to get promoted to, so in FedEx ground, which is where I was working at, you can only decline to go up twice, and then on the 3rd one you have to quit, because it's a ladder organization.
They encourage promotional growth.
Yeah. Okay. And then so I needed to be a supervisor in logistics, but the thing is that I didn't want to, because at that time so the changing colleges was probably when I was 18, and then this is probably when I was like 21. And then our biggest customer was Sony Corporation, and I applied for Sony, and they hired me as a supervisor. But with FedEx, I would have had to work what they call the graveyard shift. Okay. Which was really, really early in the morning. So it was from like 11 at night till like 4 in the morning, and I was 21 years old. The employees that were working there were in their early 40s. So I was a girl, and then I was super young, and then the employees that I was going to be managing were older men, much older. And I didn't feel that I could manage that. So I ended up moving as a supervisor for Sony Corporation, and I was in logistics as well. And Sony is a very, very nice company. It's Japanese, and but it was in Laredo. So I wanted to move to another city. I wanted to experience living in other cities, and I went to visit New York, San Francisco, and Houston, Dallas, trying to figure out where I was going to live. And then in 2007, I came to Austin, and it seemed like the right fit for me. So I went back to Laredo, and when I turned 25, in Sony, they made a party for my birthday. It was just like, a gathering, employee gathering, where there being cake, very small. Well, one of the other supervisors told me, Larissa, you have it made, because so you're 25 at this point. So 3 years passed, and at this point I'm 25, and she says, you just turned 25. You've been with the company for 3 years and a half. And I started working here when I was 18. And so I've been working here for 25 years, and it's been the most amazing journey ever. And I'm like, this is not for me.
Everybody has their cup of tea,
For me, I started crying. I was like, I can't believe that I'm actually going to be doing what I never wanted to do. And so the following day, I called in sick, and I stayed with my friend in San Antonio, and I came to apply for jobs in Austin. And that's how I got here. So I had to downsize. So I had to get a pay cut of more than half of my salary to come to live to Austin, but it didn't matter. It was completely worth it. So then I worked here for a couple of months in a little call center on South Austin, and then I got a job in Ventoli. No, then I got a job at IBM. I worked there for a year, and then I got a better position at a local logistics company, which is kind of like FedEx and Sony, because in IBM I wasn't working in logistics, and most of my experience was in the logistics industry. So I moved to Lone Star overnight, and I was working there for 2 years, and then a headhunter got me a job in Ventoli, which is it's a company based in the United States, but I was the logistics. So with FedEx, I was just regional, so I was part of Region 5. And then with Sony, I was logistics supervisor for the United States and Canada. And then with Lone Star, I was a supervisor for the United States. And then with Ventoli, it was all of America, some parts of Europe, and then some parts of Asia.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so before, I was always outbound, and in Ventoli, I was inbound and outbound. It was a really, really interesting company, and I was there for 2 years. But the hours were very long because you have to be working with every time zone, and I ended up being the operations manager for that company. And it was good and it was interesting, but you don't have a life. You're absolutely always working with the sales teams and with the logistics, production, and fixing everything that has to do with customs in every different country. You really have to love logistics.
Logistics and what you're doing, yeah.
Yeah. So you have to deal with the customs in Venezuela, and then you have to deal with ground transportation in Mexico, for example. So sometimes it's just crazy. Logistics is crazy, but I loved it. It's just that it was way too many hours. And then that was in 2014. So during the day, I was working in business. And then during the night or during the weekends, I was trying to find my dream job doing administration for a nonprofit or social work company. And at that point, I was working with 11 nonprofits, all different stuff. So I was working with Safe Place, I was working with CMAS in UT, I was working, you name it, whatever, a ton of nonprofit organizations. And I loved it, and I didn't get tired, but I wasn't getting anywhere. So I was just volunteering and doing all this work. And so I wasn't able to do, I guess, the crossover from corporate America to the nonprofit business or nonprofit industry, I guess. And then my husband told me, well, maybe if you were to take a sabbatical from corporate America, and right now I think we can manage for you to take some time off so that you can figure out, or that you can volunteer more in one or two organizations with the hopes to get a job as in an administrative position. So I did. That's what I did. I ended up giving my 2 months notice. And I started my sabbatical, and I was doing all the nonprofit, but people would see that so they were like, oh, you know how to do business plans, and you know how to do marketing, and you can help me get better rates with logistics. So bringing my product from Mexico or importing my product from Mexico to the United States.
And these are for nonprofits that were doing that?
So instead of the nonprofit administration people seeing my skills, the other volunteers were seeing my skills.
Gotcha, okay.
So I ended up having all these appointments. So it was one day, my husband is looking at our credit card statement, and he says, well, this is the most interesting sabbatical anybody has ever had. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he said, well, you had breakfast at Starbucks, and then you had a brief lunch at Cheesecake Factory, and then you went back to Starbucks, and then you had a early supper at Cheesecake Factory. And so these are all expensive restaurants.
Yeah.
And or at least for our budget they were. And so my husband says, so what are you doing? I thought that you were going to be volunteering. And I'm like, well, I'm volunteering. This lady needs a business plan. This lady wanted me to fill out some forms. This lady wanted me to do the marketing strategy. And this lady wanted me to teach her how to use Facebook. So, and he said, I'm not asking you to charge them, but at least they should pay for your coffee. Like, if you are giving them all this input, then you should. Yeah. And so I got so first when he told me about the sabbatical, I got so mad at him. I was like, ay, es un machista, ya no quiere que trabaje, mi trabajo no importa.
That's funny.
And then my friend said, Larissa, if somebody ever offered me to take a sabbatical, I would take it. And I was like, okay, I'll think about it. And I did take it. And then when he told me about this, I'm like, well, he's like, what is he talking about? He tells me that he wants me to help, but he doesn't want me to help. I can't understand what he's saying. And then the same friend that told me the first time, she says, well, he has a point. Yeah. Maybe you should just send them a bid and tell them that you are consulting, and maybe they'll pay.
Yeah.
Who knows? And so I kept on going back and forth. And then I don't know if you're familiar with who Marta Cotera is, but she's Marta Cotera is a feminist since the 70s. And she lives here in Austin. She's very powerful. I mean, not powerful in the way that she's powerful, but
no, I know what you
mean. She's a
influential.
Very influential in the community. No hidden powers anywhere. And then she I guess she has been a mentor for me. I'm not sure if she knows. But because there's nothing written down, but I always seek out for her input. I've known her for a very long time, at least 7 years. I barely got to Austin, and I met her. And so I met her at a women's meeting, and she started inviting me to events, and I kept on going. Everywhere she told me, she seemed like such an interesting person, that whenever she would text me and say, be here at 6. I had nothing better to do, so I would just go.
Okay, cool, let's show up.
Yeah. And up to this date, if she says, Larissa, I want you to be here, I'll be there. She's been, I guess, a blessing for my life, and she's helped me see the world from a very different perspective. And so I told her about the whole, my husband doesn't want me to help the world. And she was like, oh, she said, people who like to help the community need to have gigs more than jobs. Because if you have gigs, then you can accommodate to go to a march or go to volunteer whenever it's needed all over the world. Like, whatever you want to do, you can do. So it'll be better if you do have a side job. So he's right. Go ahead and put together your business. And I was like, I don't even know where to start, because I always worked in corporate, so everything was already there for you. I knew how to do. I'm an internal auditor. I worked with ISO since FedEx, so I knew how to do the procedures, but I didn't know how to fill out forms and all that for the city. So she taught me. She helped me fill out the forms, and we created the business together. She helped me. And then another very influential person in the community, her name is Monica Peña. And she helped me also with figuring out how I was going to present my bids and all that. And so I would say they are the madrinas of my business. And then first came, I guess, I tell everybody that first came the older ladies, because Marta right now, this year, I think she turned 80.
Oh wow! That's
she's
awesome.
she's gonna receive this year. She's gonna receive the Teresa Lozano Award. she's received hundreds of awards all over the United States for her work.
That's pretty cool.
And so first came the older ladies because Marta called all her friends, and they were all my customers.
It's like the council.
Yeah, so I bet that she called. She says she didn't, but I'm pretty sure she did call all of them. And then first came them, and then all the women, because I was in a lot of nonprofit organizations for women. So they started also asking me for gigs that I'm pretty sure they were just trying to help me. And so it's been 2 years that my business has been growing a lot. So now I have 2 other ladies that work with me, one of them full-time, the other one on a project basis, and several other women that also work in a subcontracting basis. So depending on the projects that I get, it's the people that I recruit, and then the same way for them. Sometimes I work, whenever their consulting firms need more people, then they hire me and my team, and we work together. It's a very good, I guess, it's a synergy where several consultants work together, and that does allow me to do a lot of volunteer service with the community. And so I guess I still want to do more. There's only 24 hours in a day. Plus, there's the husband who has been, I must say that he has been absolutely supportive of everything that I've done. And not only that, but he doesn't really get into the business, but whenever I have whenever I have a need, maybe on his scope of work, I have a business or a customer that is so he will also act as a consultant for me. And then so he's been very supportive throughout this 4 years. And so now we have a baby, and
Congratulations, that's awesome.
Yeah, but so it's pretty cool. And I guess so it seems to me that this is only the beginning. I can't add any more words to it.
You're in the infancy stage.
Yeah. But I feel that from my parameters, I feel like it's total success. So BCO kept on, my company.
I was going to say, actually, before we go too far, what's the name of your company, and what, as a whole, what are the services that your company provides?
So BCO stands for Bilingual Community Outreach.
Okay.
And I work with the bilingual community. So the main customers, or the larger customers, are individuals that their main language is in Spanish, and they want to do business with the Anglo community, or larger Anglo organizations that want to get into the Spanish-speaking community.
Gotcha. Okay.
So
you're pretty much that bridge between both worlds.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I provide services for the larger organizations. For example, if they have a grant and they want to get an immersion into the Spanish-speaking community, then I help them with that. So, and then the other way around, there's a business owner who has been working for several years with the Anglo community, but they don't have a structure in their business. So I help them create that structure. So depending on the stage of the business that you are, I will help you to develop. So for example, I usually don't work with startups or businesses that are less than a year, because I rather them go through organizations that will help them understand what they're doing. So the people that are starting a business, most of the time they don't have enough resources, time resources and money resources. So I send them to local organizations that will provide with the education for free or at a reduced price. And they will learn to do it. So I rather they go and learn, and then once they're ready, come, and then we're speaking the same language.
Right, the basics. Yeah.
But if they prefer that I work with them and then teach them on the way, then I do. And so whether it is I need to go register my business at the Texas Comptroller or the Travis County, so it's going to be a corporation, it's going to be a DBA, I help them with that. Or I help them create an operations operations procedure. I help them do business plans with objectives. So people believe that business plans are just to get a loan at the bank, but it's actually an operations plan for the future. And business plans are living creatures. So I help people understand that, and then I help them create and start to move and grow with. So it's like a dance, right? So when you want to open a business, you think that you're going to provide a service, but as you continue in your business, you figure out that whether you want to offer that, but people will pay for this, right? So then you have to move your business plan and adjust. So you either drop some services or improve the services that you wanted to offer. That way people will want those services. But in the meantime, you have to make money.
Right.
So I help my customers figure out what is the high frequency and what is the high revenue, and what are the business services that, even though they're not high revenue or high frequency, but they love those services. So we keep them on their business plan or their business, and we create profitable businesses.
What would you say is one of the biggest obstacles for a person trying to operate the business from your perspective?
So there's several obstacles, but then I don't know how many hours you have. But so one of them is lack of information.
Okay.
And lack of resources. So you either have the time, but you don't have the money, or you have the money, but you don't have the time. And sometimes you have time and you have a way to get the money, but you're not good at what you want to do. Okay. So in order for a business to succeed, you have to be good at what you do. You have to, and then another thing is that people say, oh, I want to open my own business because I want to be my own boss. There's no such thing as you're going to be your own boss. So when you work in a corporation or you work for a company, you have one boss.
Right.
When you're a business owner, you have, if you're lucky, which I hope everybody's lucky, you're going to have more than 30 bosses. And you can't, so customer A won't say, oh, you're working with customer B. No worries. I'll wait.
Everybody wants everything.
So it's like you cut the head of the boss and then you find like 30 new heads. Yeah. So there's a misunderstanding of what business is. So it's having a business, it's very easy. Having a very successful business, it's also very easy. But people have to understand where they're standing and what they're doing, and they have to understand their resources. So I have had several customers that say, well, they paid me $10, but I gave them the work for $50. So you're not providing a service, you're actually hurting yourself, and you're actually hurting your customer, because your customer is going to be used to what to the price that you're providing, and then whenever you have 30 customers, then they're all going to be expecting that you do so it's lack of information and lack of understanding of what is required and what is a business, and then so that is one of the biggest obstacles, I guess. So there are two, depending on the industry, is what they're gonna find. Another one is people don't want to deal with the finances, so they open a business and they'll leave it to their husband or to their wife, but in order for you to leave or they'll even leave it to an accountant. But if you're not on top of the accountant trying to figure out how your finances are going, then your accountant is not going to be able to provide with the services with the service that you need. So it's a living creature. So you can't have a baby sleep all the time but not feed them. Right. You have to give them sleep. Finding the happy balance, I guess, is one of the biggest obstacles in the Hispanic or Latino community. A big obstacle is the lack of understanding of contracts. So I started the business with my brother. I start the business with my dad. I start the business with my best friend, with the neighbor, you know? And then you put all this time, emotions, money into a business for 5-6 years, and then you realize it's not yours. It's not your business. And they can take it away if they can.
Right.
So contracts, they're very important. And people, the other day I was dealing with so he's a happy camper now, and he got his business and all. But so he grew his business with his neighbor. By the time I connect with them, they've been in business for 15 years. 50-50. One of them is doing 6 things per month. The other one is doing more than 35 things. So both of them are getting 50% of the profits. But one of them
the work is not as balanced.
The work is not balanced
Wow.
because there was no contract, or there was no business plan with expectations of who was doing what. So when I get to the picture, he's asking me to help them sell the business because he's done and he's tired, and he doesn't want to do it anymore, and he doesn't know how to get out. So I told him, well, if you're doing 50-50, let's balance the 50-50 because your partner doesn't want to sell. So we balanced it. So he had been trying to get the business for 4 years. And then we balanced the work in September, and the partner sold in October. So he only did a 50-50 job for 2 months, and then he was like, this is too much for me, I can't. So we did a contract, and then he wanted to, he said, okay, we'll sell. Well, then he calls me and he says, hey, he gave me the contract, we won. And this is over a $10 million company.
Wow.
So he says, we're going to sign tomorrow. And then I'm like, okay. And then he says, I want you to read the contract. Well, I'm no lawyer. I'm no corporations. Like, even if I was a lawyer, I'm not a corporations lawyer. You have to go to an attorney. And then he says, well, they're very expensive. And I'm like, how much are you going to pay for it? He was going to pay $1.5 million to this gentleman. And he didn't want to pay $700 for an attorney to read the contract. And
that's like pennies on a dollar compared to what he's going to be investing.
It's pennies compared to, I helped them see the perspective, and I'm like, you have to go see an attorney. You have to have them read, and even if charge you $1,400, you have to have them read it. Yeah. Because it's not even 1% of what you're going to be giving. So it ended up being that the contract said that if for 1 month he didn't pay the monthly payment that he was going to pay his partner, then the deal went down. So he was actually about to sign that. So even if he gave him $1.2 million, if he forgot to give him the monthly payment, then the partner was back in the company. So he ended up paying the $700. He got his protections, and it's been a couple of years that he is full owner of his kingdom, I guess. We call it, for him, we used to call it the kingdom because that's the way he so I help my customers understand these things. And so it could be something so little as I want you to do a logo, and I have my team I work with several designers that will give me a good price for creating the logo according to their needs, to bigger business transactions like that one.
Oh, wow. Okay. So it's a pretty big spectrum of services.
I guess the best way to describe it, I'm a business administration generalist. So anything that has to do with business general understanding of how a for-profit or non-profit organization works, then I will provide with the service as a generalist. And then if we need to do something like more, I guess, targeted, then we'll go with a corporation's attorney. We'll go to a accountant for nonprofit.
Specialized folks.
So I guess what the group part is saying is that I'm not providing the service by myself. If I need to get the support from other people to give you an educated response to what your business needs, then we will get it.
Okay. What would you say has been one of the biggest learning lessons that you have come across in your journey of getting to where you're at right now?
I know that I hesitate a lot. So, should I do it? Shouldn't I do it? Mm-hmm. I don't have the money. If I do it and then it doesn't work. So, now I understand that if you're going to do something right and you're going to do the necessary assessment for what you're doing, it's going to be okay. So, I think the biggest obstacle for my growth has been myself.
Mm-hmm. As with most of us.
Yes, and it's something that I guess you improve with time, and you start working faster in the way that before I wanted to launch a project and it would take me years. At this point, if I want to launch a project, then it'll be like within months. Mm-hmm. And so I'm from a small town, and I run into several people that are from bigger cities. Mm-hmm. And so for me, if I wanted something before, I would. So if I wanted an interview with you, first I would connect with you on LinkedIn. Then I would start liking your post and maybe comment. And then 2 years from now, I would figure out where you were going to be, and mm-hmm. then reach out to you and say hi. And then, so it was just such a recon project that would take me 3 years to get to the person that I wanted to get.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I start meeting people, and they come from Miami or New York, and they just go and get it. So they want an interview with you. Speed, yeah. They just like figure out where you're going to be, just get there and say, hi, I'm Larissa and I want an interview with you. Mm-hmm. And here I am I'm like, what? So I've been liking his post since 2010.
That's funny.
So I think a lot. And so I guess my biggest obstacle, and I'm trying not to seem like I want it so bad, or not mm-hmm. trying, and I don't know if it's a good girl thing, or it's a little town girl, or it's a girl thing, or business person, I don't know. So I don't know where the glitch is, but so I'm pushing myself to be more strategic and be faster with what I want to do. Mm-hmm. But one of the things that has detracted me from getting to where I want to be is that I am very, I guess.
Would you consider yourself to be like very analytical?
I am very analytical.
Okay.
And so I guess in Spanish they say, tu mayor virtud es tu peor defecto.
Yeah. So your biggest strengths can be your biggest weakness.
Yeah. So the good thing is I'm very analytical, and because I'm very analytical, most of the projects that I invest my time or resources in are good projects. Mm-hmm. The thing is that it can take me a while to launch. So if I did that, so another thing that we were talking about is Latino obstacles. Mm-hmm. Another one is trademarks. Okay. So people have a dream, and then they're analytical, and then they're trying to like find the right time, the right budget, the right space, the right something. And in the meantime, they're brainstorming and they're telling people.
Bouncing ideas off of people.
And they're bouncing ideas, and they take away their ideas. And it's very, very common within smaller circles. My family, my brother, my sister, my friend, my neighbor. They bounce ideas, and then people take their ideas, and there's nothing they can do because there's no trademarks. So we as Latinos need to be better at working with our contracts and then our trademarks and how knowing how to navigate the checks and balances that this country has. So there's a lot of progress and we can do it, but we have to learn how to navigate and when we have to protect our things and our ideas. The other day I was working with a nonprofit and so I helped launch a project and they were using the fiscal sponsorship of a nonprofit and I was helping them and then they were about to register the project and they point blank told me, oh, we're just going to go ahead and copyright it. And why are you going to copyright it if it's not yours? And they said, well, yeah, but we hired you so that you would help them. We're paying for the media. We've always used our resources. So yes, it was their idea, but we've managed to get to where it is. So we're going to copyright. And is it legal? Yes. Because, I guess it's not moral or it's not ethical.
Ethical, maybe, yeah.
I guess it's not fair play, but it's legal play.
Right.
So there was a very blurry line, and then this person could have lost their project. So I told them, you know what, I'm out of the project. I don't want to have anything to do with it. And they ended up not taking away the project, and I ended up losing the relationship with the nonprofit because I spoke up about what I didn't think it was right.
Right.
But at the end, I guess it was right for me. So I didn't want to work with a nonprofit that had so for them it was fair play, and for me it wasn't. So I'd rather not.
Yeah, it's about doing the right thing.
Yeah. And whose fault was it? It was our fault because we don't register. So I ended up helping this project fill out the paperwork to get it copyrighted at the Library of Congress. We did a quick register at the Travis County, and now the project is theirs and theirs forever to keep. Cool. But how many people are going through the same, and how many ideas are being taken away just because we don't do our the necessary research? And then people say, oh, the library copyright. Right? But it's really easy. You just have to fill out a form and pay, and you have to do it. And then I have it forever engraved in my mind that they said, well, because I told them, I said, and this was an open meeting, and they said, oh, we're just going to take it away. And I was like, well, some people have ideas every day. This person in particular, this is the one and only idea they have had ever. And because of their situation and all that, it's not like they're gonna be able to do a lot of things with it because immigration and all that. So I told them, well, if you want to do this, then I don't think it's right. You're gonna take away the one idea
If they have, yeah.
Yeah. And they told me, you know what? You're talking about the project like it's their baby, right? And I'm like, yes, it's their baby. And then they said, well, if you have a baby, you just take the baby out of the hospital, or do you register your baby? We want the baby. We're gonna register that baby. We're gonna give that baby a home.
They want to force adopt.
They wanted to force adopt the project. And you know what? This is something that people do every day in the United States because we leave the doors open. So
for those that are listening in the podcast, the takeaway would be to make sure that once you get your idea, properly go through the channels to get it protected, either through copyright, through trademark, through whatever industry you're in requires, and then making sure that you follow up and before you start sharing your idea with everybody in the world. Yeah, absolutely. And it's not their fault. It's not. So sometimes we are victims of. There's a word for it, but it's like you bounce ideas with me, and you're so good at bouncing ideas with me that I don't even realize. So
you're talking to the subconscious part of the other person.
Mm-hmm.
So you tell someone something, and then that person doesn't even know that you told them that. It happens a lot with baby names. So there's two friends, and then they're trying to figure out what they're gonna name their babies when they're 18. So one says, "Oh, I'm gonna name my baby Sarah because it means awaken and pretty and beauty and princess." And then 5 years later, the other chick has a baby, and she names him Sarah. She names the baby Sarah, and then she doesn't think that she took the name away from the other person. She just knows that it's a beautiful name because it means princess and beautiful and all that. So people don't do it on purpose. But if you share your ideas with other people, and then it goes, you are so passionate about your idea that you sell your idea to another person, and then that other person will take it and will do it right. And you can't say anything because it wasn't copyrighted.
It wasn't yours. Well, it was idea yours, but it wasn't
and
on
you
paper,
didn't act upon it. So with businesses, you have to be quiet until you launch, and you have everything registered, copyrighted, everything. So depending on what it is, it's a copyright, trademark, business registration, whatever you have to do. Be very careful with your intellectual property.
What do you feel has been some of the learning opportunities or things that you learned about yourself from the perspective of being Latina?
Well, I didn't know. So I come from the twilight zone.
Explain.
It's like it's for example for Puerto Rico. You're part of the United States, but you'll never experience, growing up, you'll always see Latino doctors, Latino lawyers, Latino business owners, Latino rich people, Latino, and they all speak Spanish. And so I remember I was working at in Laredo, and there was this lady in accounting, and she was Anglo, and then she was weird. But so I remember one day she got mad and she said, "You know what? I'm getting out of this explicit town, and I'm going back to Dallas. You all think you're the explicit, but you live in the twilight zone." Everybody busted in, like, laughing, because the Twilight Zone, at that time there were the Twilight Files, or the Twilight something. There was like X-Files.
X-Files.
So
there actually was a Twilight Zone TV show, I think it was Channel 30, Sci-Fi Channel or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when she said the Twilight Zone, everybody thought about the show.
The TV show, yeah.
And we were laughing for weeks about the Twilight Zone. And then she would go to work with her, like, cowboy boots and she was very country. And she was the only country person and the only white girl in the business, because in Laredo 95% of the population is Hispanic who speaks Spanish.
Right. Okay.
So when she said that, it didn't click to me. It was just like, yeah, loca, like whatever.
Yeah.
So she left, and then it didn't happen to me until I came to Austin. And then, where's that beautiful accent from? I didn't even know I had an accent. And then, so every time I would say, "Oh, I'm from Mexico." "You don't look like Mexican." Well, I look very Mexican to me.
Yeah.
And so it just started like getting to me. So it took me a while to understand that I was no longer in the Twilight Zone, and that I was very privileged that I grew up there, because I never saw it. So for me, it wasn't a matter of, are you going to college or not? It was a matter of, what college are you going to? Like, so everybody would talk about college, or there was no problem finding a job because your last name was, my maiden name is Perez.
Perez, okay.
So there was never an issue with Larissa Perez. So everybody, it was just the last name, like the same last name that the major had, So
the major, and that's in the little town, was Perez as well?
Yeah, so it didn't matter. It didn't matter if you were Hispanic or not, because everybody was Hispanic. So
Gotcha,
there was no So, for example, my little niece came to live to Austin in 2015, and she was with me for 3 years. So when she came here, she couldn't understand the separation by race.
Gotcha.
Right? So she was like, what's going on here? And I explained to her, I told her, well, you're coming from a community that it's on a class basis. So everybody's the same race, so they won't
Just people that
discriminate.
made more money and less money and whatnot, yeah.
And then last year she moved back to Laredo, and she says, everybody's so mean. They're always talking about money, and they're judging people by what they wear. And I told her, okay, you had the opportunity to experience the race-based system and then go back to the class-based system. And none of them are bad. They're just seeing through their own mirror what they want to see. So my experience as a Latino coming to Austin has been that, first of all, if there's any Anglo people listening to this podcast, there's more rock bands than Maná. There's thousands and thousands of rock bands. But so at first it was funny. Yeah. And then it started getting just annoying. And at first I would just humor them with, oh yeah, they are. And then I'm like, no. Not anymore. Like, I'm not gonna roll my R's for you. Yeah. No more. And then I guess I found the perfect spot in my life where most of my customers, like 90% of my customers, are Spanish-speaking customers, and then the other 10% are government agencies. So I don't have to do small talk, or I don't have to like. For me, I'm in my happy place, and I like my happy place.
For those that are listening, I'm sitting here with Larissa Davila. She's the founder and CEO of BCO, Bilingual Community Outreach Consulting Group, here in Austin. So if anybody is interested in they have their own business or looking to get some consulting information, and how can they connect with you?
Well, they can find me through LinkedIn, BCO Consulting Group, Larissa Davila, or they can find my website, BCO Consulting Group, or they can give me a call. My phone number is 512-636-6381.
Perfect. Great. Well, Larissa, thank you so much for being on the show, and it's been a pleasure. And for those listening, I hope you have a great week, and we'll catch up with you next week. All right, take care. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning in, and please do not forget to share it on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at LatinXTalX.